was on with us about a week and a half ago. Joel Skousen of World Affairs Brief is going to be joining us. He didn't tell me a day and a half before he was on. He survived an incredible plane crash that was actually local and ended up being covered by some national news as a miraculous survival. Same thing with the head of the UK Independence Party, Nigel Farage. He barely survived an incredible crash by the grace of God. We're going to be briefly talking about that and just the perspective on life, and then shifting gears into other geopolitical issues. But first off, if you just joined us, there's an article by Adon Salazar that was posted yesterday up at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com, where a retired Army captain warns DHS acquisitions are bold threat of war against the American people. Says Americans may have to prepare to defend themselves in the U.S. Constitution against the Obama administration's coup against the American people. And then he breaks down the armored vehicles, the Inter Posse Comitatus, and he really crystallizes it for me, because it's what the RAND Corporation admits they would do back in 1998 in a report that I covered on air at the time. Federalized, but that itself is UN or globalized via the global corporate government that has three different groups battling for control of it, but they all support the global government because they all think they're going to get control of it. And he explains in his letter to the U.S. Senator, and it's published up at Infowars.com with a video report I did yesterday. He goes on to explain this is a fifth branch of the military. It's really even outside of NORTHCOM that it ties into there in Colorado Springs and Denver. It's the shadow government absorbing America. Thousands of armored vehicles, not just the 2,700, going to different agencies. Every police department I know has armored vehicles, helicopters. They're getting new ones. I see the big black armored ones here in Austin that say DHS Federal Police. We've done video reports on it. So we've got all of this happening, all of that unfolding, and you've got state and federal agencies. You can't swing a dead cat anywhere in the U.S. now without federal task forces, state task forces, international task forces, zoning cops wearing uniforms, and they're arming zoning cops in many cities. Just real hardcore tyranny that is all covered in the United Nations Industrial Development Organization plan from the 50s, 60s, and 70s that is the forerunner of Agenda 21. Of real control is about controlling industry and shutting it down so only select groups at the top of the combine can operate. And they've made deals to transfer everything to China as a way to leverage and get full political control of us here domestically. And the good news is this debate is now beginning to really take hold out there about why is government arming to the teeth domestically and saying gun owners, conservatives, libertarians are the new #1 terror threat, as we warned you they would go public with, because that was internal a decade ago. The fact that they're going public means they're getting ready to go more and more operational. They've got all the movies, the TV shows where the new bad guys are mainly white gun owners, conservatives, libertarians who are secretly Taliban. And they've got new movies out. So they wouldn't be bringing all this out unless they were moving into a hotter phase with a false flag or something along those lines to politically demonize us. Because anytime the globalists can't win, they will stage events to blame it on you as a form of political judo in a self-inflicted inside job operation. And I see all the stars aligning for that to be done. But if we have a maximum effort right now to expose this, it may push their timetable back. Their timetable, Brzezinski says, is a decade behind. Joel Skousen, who's a smart guy in my summation, says they're about a decade behind. I believe they're about a decade behind. Don't have the defeatist attitude that we couldn't take America back. It's that foregone conclusion, that self-fulfilling prophecy. We should be offensively trying to take America back, but we are up against a powerful array of forces, as Joel says, while building a defense fallback position. So you got to be on offense and defense. But right now, I am myself on full tilt offense because I've already set up my defense, moving out to a country zone that's a little safer, food, firearms, friends, family, educated. But before we go to Joel, here's just a few of these articles today. This is a U.S. News and World Report. It cites Infowars.com. DHS denies massive ammunition purchases. And when you go and look at what Media Matters and other White House groups, they just say there are no bullets, period. There are no armored vehicles. They actually lie and say, not that we bought a $500 million this year and are going to get a couple billion over the next few years. They're just denying it and saying it doesn't exist. Here's the Drudge Report. 360,000 more rounds, another purchase, and that's a Infowars.com article. And government cover-up of ammo buys implodes. Silence, secrecy, and shoddy attempts at debunking the facts have led to congressional inquiry. Now 15 members of Congress getting into that. And meanwhile, Obama presses Congress to vote on assault weapons ban, banning semi-autos. He says he's going to hit the road with a political campaign against guns, which he promised to not go after 4 years ago. Bloomberg has a $14 million ad blitz. It was $12 million. Now they've announced it's $14 million last night against the Second Amendment. They're on the offense, folks, because they're going to stage something or provocateur something to blame the Second Amendment. I could see all the signs. I told you that back in November before Sandy Hook. Okay, I mean, it's all lined up right now. DHS, again, ladies and gentlemen, is moving on all fronts right now. And I understand what Joel says. If we run around like total chickens with our heads cut off, let's just cover this first, then we'll get into your plane crash, which is just miraculous. We have video of it and more for the TV viewers watching on prisonplanet.tv. But Joel Skousen, of course, is better known as the best-selling author of The Secure Home, Strategic Relocation, now in its third edition. Both books and the video are available at InfoWarsShop.com. And I produced a film with him breaking it down, Strategic Relocation, the film, all available at InfoWarsStore.com if you want to support all of our work. But what I'm saying is people are finally waking up that there's an arms buildup, a domestic buildup against us. They're finally getting the common sense that, hey, a standing army's dangerous. I know politically that if we keep pushing this, it will discredit their gun grab, because why should we turn our guns in when they're arming to the teeth against us? Joel Skousen.
It's a really interesting conundrum, Alex, because there are two forces at work here. One, the government trying to provoke the right into displaying something radical enough to justify all of their warnings about the domestic terrorists on the right that the Southern Poverty Law Conference has been putting out. And at the same time, they're trying to push this gun control, and it's backfiring on them. I mean, even the governor of New York is backtracking on the 7-round clips because there's such a wall of resistance. He's trying to placate that resistance. So they're overplaying their hand at the same time they're trying to get us to overplay our hand. And so we have to be very careful to walk this line. But I think you've got the exact appropriate right approach. We've got to go on the offensive without engendering anybody claiming like, let's arm and let's go attack now. That would undermine our cause. But one thing is very clear, Alex. The government cannot use 3 billion rounds of the Department of Homeland Security cannot use 3 billion rounds of ammunition. It's 24 wars worth of handgun ammunition of the type of that was in World War II. And so obviously they're either trying to corner the market or simply enrage the people about this, and it could backfire on them. But I can tell you that Congress is getting extremely upset about this. I think that number of 15 congressmen is going to grow if they don't get some answers. They are refusing to answer anybody in Congress. People are getting upset with the Department of Homeland Security, especially in this sequester environment when they don't have any money to operate and they're buying 3 billion rounds of ammunition. Now, remember that these are requisitions. These have not been delivered yet. There are steady streams of ammunition being delivered to DHS, but nothing of this quantity.
No, exactly. I mean, what it's done is they're buying whatever the companies say they can manufacture. I mean, I've dug into it. As much as they can make, they're cornering the market. Clearly, that is one level of what they're doing. That is the main cause of the shortages. What you can't get is the 308, the 223, the 40 hollow point. What you can't get is what they're purchasing.
Now, I also have contacts in Canada with the gun manufacturers in Canada who have said they've received phone calls from government pressuring them not to import any more weapons into the United States. They can't legally require them not to, but they're warning them, we don't want any more imports. They're trying to dry up the supply. Very, very clearly.
Oh, yeah, that's what Bloomberg and Obama and all of them has said in their task force. They said, we're calling manufacturers, we're calling government leaders, and we're seeing what we can do outside of law. Is that not really racketeering to have them just leaning on people?
It is. This is a conspiracy, and it's proof that they're in collusion to try to stop Americans from having weapons. But it's only exacerbating in their minds, the weapons, because
that was my next point. Don't tyrants get that their open their open attack is what always backfires? The fact that they've done this has absolutely begun to mobilize people.
And I don't think it's going to stop.
You know, I told you more than a decade ago, because it was in IMF and World Bank plans. I wrote about it in my book, Descent into Tyranny, 2002. It's on record, ebooks posted right now at InfoWarsNews.com for all subscribers. The book's out of print. Their own documents, they plan to bankrupt Europe and the U.S. and transfer the jobs to China, but they don't completely trust China, so they'll keep our military just to menace them. It's all about not having any one group that can stand up for itself. And now, even mainstream news admits most of the debt is not that of the people in Cyprus. It's gone to back up private central banks' debt. And first they were going to take 10% out of everybody's account. Now the deal, we have the official EU video coming up, is 40%. The top 40% of bank accounts, that's a lot of people, will have 7 to 15% taken out. Now they're talking about it in other countries. So foreign banks taking money directly out of your bank account to pay them, that is the essence of the New World Order. Joel Skousen of World Affairs Brief joins us to break that down. Joel, you started getting into Cyprus before your Skype had an interruption.
Yes, well, the Cyprus has taken a turn for the better for the EU. I keep saying time and again they will do anything it takes to keep the EU alive and not let these countries leave, and that has proven out correctly, even though they have really had to pull all the stops out against bank accounts in order to do so. They did the populist thing by saving those with less than $100,000 accounts, but what they did basically is eliminate the second largest bank, the Lycos Bank, and they've taken 40% of the largest depositors of that bank and transferred it to the Bank of Cyprus, as well as all the $100,000 of below accounts from Lycos into the Bank of Cyprus. So they've made one bank, completely liquidated the second largest bank, and taken 40% of those accounts. And now that's a major, major haircut. But remember, they made investors in the Greek banks take a 50% haircut during that bailout. What's interesting, though, is that I found out that the majority of the Russian deposits had already left that bank and had transferred their money over to the Bank of Cyprus. And so essentially they let the non-Russian large investors take that haircut and in preserving the Bank of Cyprus. But at the same time, because they have completely destroyed the trust in the banks, they have no definite opening date for the Bank of Cyprus. They still have a limit of 120 euros a day for people to take out of their ATMs, and they're going to have limits, indefinite limits, on further withdrawals from the Bank of Cyprus after this so-called thing is resolved. So what it means is Cyprus is done as an economy. They're just simply, I don't know how they're going to survive. The banking economy was about 8 times larger than the real tourist economy. So what they're going to have to do is prolong this until they can get the major gas fields online in Cyprus, which have the potential of replacing about 40% of Europe's gas needs. That's a cash cow I think they're holding on to for future use in Cyprus.
Joel Skousen is our guest. What does this do to people all over the world, their confidence in banks? Not only do you not get interest now, but now it's your money and they just come and steal it to give it to private interest. I mean, this is unprecedented.
Well, they have done it to specifically, as you say, to bolster the private interest of the Bank of Cyprus. They've made some people whole and they've taken everything from other people. Remember, when you liquidate that account, they say they're taking 40%, but actually the whole bank is being liquidated. And that means that even for the first time, senior bondholders, the first in line, are having to take a haircut, though from what I hear from my European sources, it's not very much of a haircut. They are taking the unsecured creditors over $100,000 and making them lose everything.
Sure, sure. And let me be specific here. I had read the articles out this morning. They're up on Infowars.com, Paul Joseph Watson's article. Europe, anyone with over 100,000 euro savings now has to have 40% taken out of their account. And I had what I'd call a Freudian mistake, because before it was just going to be 10 to 15% they took out. Some estimates were 7.7 or even 6.9. And I mentally cannot believe they're going to take 40% out of anybody with over 100,000 euros. So my mind twisted that. I mean, that is so huge that anybody over 100,000 euros is wealthy. Most people that are retired, even if they worked their whole life as a janitor, they better have 100,000 euros. I mean, that's nothing. That, with inflation, that is... I mean, that's janitors and people should have that much saved. This is just incredible, and it shows what they're going to do.
I'm Darren McBreen, and these are some of the new items that are available now at InfoWarsShop.com.
Alert the public to Obama's blatant abuse of power with the new Obama t-shirt. Obama's Joker face on the front and "Come and Take It" on the back. It's time to publicly call him out for what he is, a tyrant. Defend the Second Amendment with our top seller "Come and Take It" t-shirts. And look at that, women's cut tank tops and t-shirts now available. Nice hat. Plus the "Don't Tread on Me" flag. And now you can become a micro distributor of the InfoWars magazine. Plus, get your own copy delivered right to your door each and every month. And if you're tired, like I am, of you and your family being exposed to polluted drinking water, get the Pro One high-performance water filter. It gets rid of all pathogenic bacteria, cyst, fluoride, heavy metals, and numerous other contaminants.
So join the revolution at InfoWarsShop.com.
Let's not exaggerate. 6-7 hours a day trying to research news and information on top of being on the air. And I can't keep track of but a fraction of what's happening. But everywhere we look, corruption is moving at light speed. And the more the corrupt raid pension funds, engage in new taxes, regulations, new insider cronyism, the more that accelerates, the more other criminals are able to move in government and corporations, and it creates kind of a swarm effect against which there aren't a lot of defenses other than having good people swarm back at them and get in their face and sue them and criticize them and resist them. I mean, that's why we've got to get you active, because when you just go to a city council meeting, that freaks them out. When you go to one of their Agenda 21 meetings and expose the fact it's a global financial espionage takeover, it freaks them out. When you run for office and for city or county or state and go to these debates, it freaks them out. And it educates others, and then you'll meet like-minded people, and you can start creating your own centers of resistance. Now, we're going to go back to our guest and cover the waterfront here, finish up with the financials, get into some of the geopoliticals, and then also talk about what's happening in the aftermath of his plane crash, and we're certainly glad he survived that. Joel, I want to move quick now because I've got all my long-winded points and you've got all your points. Finishing up with what you expect to happen now, because here are some of the headlines. It's official. Banks in Europe may now seize deposits to cover their gambling losses. And I tune into our news, Fox Radio, CNN. They're like, boy, Cyprus and the Cypriots got the help they needed, a bailout, when it's not their bailout. It's pure global mafia robbing a bank to prop up the EU. Here's another one. Europe, 100,000 savings now considered wealthy. Everybody above that, 40% peeled out of your account. And as Joel was just pointing out, the rich had already gotten the word. They're all exempt, the truly rich. It's the middle class they want to shut down. It's always the mega rich robbing the middle class. That's what Bill Gates, all of them, that's what Warren Buffett's about when he says raise taxes. He gets bailout money. Cyprus bank bailout agreement is pure theft. 40% of private deposits to be looted from selected accounts. Words of warning, get your money out of European banks. That's just some of the headlines that are up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. But Cyprus strikes last-minute EU bailout deal. London Guardian. It is not a bailout. A bailout would be a bank coming and bailing out the country that has bad credit. But the very banks are giving us bad credit ratings while they themselves are the black holes of the derivatives. You know, Joel, I know you've studied and written about this for decades. Again, if you just joined us, Joel Skousen was Navy, a Marine Corps aviator in Vietnam, carrier guy. We're going to talk about his crash landing a few weeks ago here in a moment. But you hear me throwing all this out, the sense of alarm in my voice. Why are they so bold as to start doing this? Is it a test to see if they can get the media to just normalize this new direct taxation to the globalist?
Well, Alex, they actually had no other choice. There wasn't any money to extract. Normally, as in Ireland, they required the taxpayers to pick up the tab for a portion of the bailout on condition of them giving European money into them. They, in fact, did hand over 20 billion euros from the banking system, the central bank and the IMF, to these banks to make them whole. And they liquidated one and took money, what was remaining in that bank, and gave it over to another one. Remember that the 40% is only an average, Alec. Some people lost everything in this, and the highest senior bond stakeholders maybe lost 10%.
You cut out when you mentioned the point about some people lost everything. See, my mind isn't even computing that. In fact, they talk about that in psychological warfare, how our minds tend to automatically lessen how bad something is. I forget the name of that, but I guess it's called denial. That's right. People accuse me of exaggerating. It's worse than that. Some people had everything taken. Go ahead.
That's right. As I say, it was an average of 40%, and most of the medium-sized, middle-class, wealthy lost everything. The senior bondholders had a stake, probably no more than about 10% that they had to give up. But you're absolutely right in the analysis that Cyprus simply has no income to service this additional debt. They're taking the debt, but they're going to have to give more bailouts until the gas comes back on in Cyprus. They've got huge gas reserves coming online, hopefully in 2018 or 2018. Until then, Cyprus is going to be in red ink, continually need more bailouts. The Spanish and Portuguese savers are saying that they're next. I think you're going to see some pretty stiff runs on the banks in Spain and Portugal and Italy as they transfer money out of those banks into the safer German and Swiss banks because they know now that everybody's at risk of having their deposits grabbed. Now, I want to mention one other thing. I've had a long history of people asking me advice. I keep telling them, don't put your money in overseas bank accounts. Everybody wants to avoid the IRS trap here and get the money overseas. And I said, someday you're going to lose it because they're simply going to cut off access. And this has made believers, and a lot of them, you're going to see a run on overseas bank accounts, repatriating it back into the United States.
And so short term, this will probably help the dollar?
Absolutely. You know, the dollar is being helped right now by the fact that most countries are inflating much higher than the dollar percentage-wise. And that's why gold and silver are flat and slightly declining, because the dollar is looking strong relative to all of the other weaker currencies.
Now, I know you're familiar with Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, former head of the Treasury and Policy, the father of Reaganomics. He says it's a triple bubble. I mean, obviously that's true. Bonds, and then, of course, you've got stocks, and there's really more than three bubbles if you count real estate and other things. But what is your take on how long this can go? Because obviously it's being orchestrated at many levels, but if Cyprus and Europe really are having real problems, couldn't that cause a chain reaction? At first, it will make us buoy, but won't it cause problems after that first bubbling effect?
Well, it could if they failed to support it. I mean, they've got enough means with the huge dollar base that they have to continue to inflate. The Fed can throw out almost $9 trillion a year and not exceed 10% inflation of the money supply. So they've got a tremendous power to continue to bail out. The great danger is if they get into a high inflation situation, it would force interest rates up, which would collapse the phony recovery that we're seeing. So I think they're going to work very, very hard to keep bailouts to the minimum. That's why they had to take some of these deposits instead of making a pure bailout so that it wasn't as inflationary on the euro. But they can keep going, and I believe they're going to do whatever it takes to keep going until war comes, because war gives them cover. They don't get the blame for any banking collapse then. It's the war that causes it. So I think we're going to see it stretch out until Russia and China finally attack the West.
Let me raise that issue with you, because I talked to them about the Koch brothers last hour. I'm always being accused of working for them with no proof, so I did some research on them, and they're globalist. They're tied into some of the big foundations, but they are fighting Agenda 21 and the shutdown of their own plants, which even if you hate wealthy people, folks, it's going to increase your gas prices if they shut down the refineries and the coal plants and things. But they're the favorite demon. But then I look at Soros and people and Berkshire Hathaway shutting down the Keystone Pipeline, making sure China gets that oil so they make the profits. I agree with you that it's obviously China, Russia, and the Anglo-American establishment as blocks. You've got the BRICS, in between Russia and China, but those two authoritarian groups don't trust each other either. What is the point of deindustrializing America if the globalists, aren't in full control of China? Why are they putting so many eggs, giving them the Panama Canal, just giving them everything, giving them all our deep water ports on the West Coast? I mean, it is just incredible. A foreign Air Force couldn't bomb out our factories this bad.
Well, I really don't believe that the Anglo-American establishment controls China. I believe China is an independent predator, but I think that they have been helping build an enemy as they have built Russia and helped Russia since the very beginning of the revolution. They're still continuing to help China, and that's why we've seen, as I covered in the World Affairs Brief, they continue to hire Chinese scientists into NASA research. They continue to have exchanges into our weapons laboratories. They're really trying to make sure they get all the technology they need to have the confidence to threaten the West.
Yeah, the number I saw was 10,000, and then they just let them go right back with all the secrets knowingly.
And they continue to hand out visas like water to Chinese students coming over to our top universities, and they do very well in science, and they take back those secrets there too. But there's a major sea change happening right now in Russia, and I'm going to do a special edition of the World Affairs Brief coming out this Friday on what the Berezovsky assassination means and what they have in store for the two other competitors, Roman Abramovich and Mikhail Khodorkovsky, who's currently in prison but is getting ready to stage a major comeback.
Okay, you just got to my next question, which I hadn't told you yet. Obviously, so many people get killed, assassinated, and it's an assassination when, as soon as it comes out, there's not even an autopsy. They say no foul play, no evidence that Berezovsky was killed, say police, locked in the bathroom. That's proof that he killed himself with a scarf next to him, which would be a clear message that he was killed. A big enemy of Putin, at least on the surface. Geopolitically, Joel Skousen, what does this mean?
Well, I had believed for many years because, Putin met with Berezovsky, according to Spanish intelligence, 5 times the year he ascended to the presidency. So clearly Putin was a Berezovsky minion when he started out. But at some point, Putin and Berezovsky had a falling out. I thought it was political theater. I thought it would be stupid for Berezovsky to say from his London villa that he was going to finance a coup against Putin. I mean, nobody would do that publicly if they were intending to do it. But with the assassination of Litvinenko and Berezovsky now, two who were very close, and Litvinenko had, in fact, fingered a lot of the KGB, FSB, phony bombings of apartments in order to justify their war on terror in Chechnya. He became put on a list for assassination, and they took him out, and Berezovsky did himself. But interestingly enough, both Abramovich and Chodorkowski, the two younger wealthy oligarchs who are the wealthiest, not counting Kaczynski, of the media king there in Russia. These people both got their start into being wealthy through Boris Berezovsky. And of course, Berezovsky lost this major court battle with Abramovich, even though he had basically given him the stock and made Abramovich rich. Abramovich took and run with it and essentially cut Berezovsky out. Chodorkowski and Yukos Oil also did his deal with Berezovsky and apparently cut him out as well. So it looked like there's some major infighting between two other factions. Putin may be a third. I'm not sure which one he's aligned with. But this is very serious. The Anglo-American establishment also got their fingers in the pie. I found out that Mikhail Chodorkowski had sold or given his shares in Yukos Oil to Jacob Rothschild, major player in the Anglo-American establishment, just before he was indicted and when he went to prison. So essentially...
That's happened repeatedly, and the Rothschilds sue if people claim that, but then have lost the lawsuits. So that's been reported in the Financial Times of London, absolutely. How powerful are the Rothschilds?
Well, I think they are the key base of money operations of the globalists. And there is a major U.S. component to that now, which competes with them to a certain extent. But I think the Rothschilds are the biggest financial base of the New World Order that we're dealing with.
What is their ideology? Because they're reportedly at least part Jewish. They've married into some of the royalty over there. But I always see them also funding eugenics and just really nasty stuff.
Well, I think their ideology is globalist, which means that they're socialist of the variety that believes in milking capitalism, not destroying it, not nationalizing. It's a Fabian type of socialism. But they also play, as you know, the Hegelian dialectic, playing both sides. They've got their fingers in the Russian conspiracy this time. What's interesting is that Chodorkowski is, in fact, the one who's promoting the return of communism.
That's right. And it was Rothschilds that helped finance communism.
That's right. But whether or not he really represents the underground communists that right now control Putin, Putin is not running the show. Putin is a puppet. He runs from the major communist conspiracy that faked their own demise.
Well, stay there. Let's break that down. If we can, hold you into the next hour to cover the plane crash. Believe me, it was incredible. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
While we fight to retain our liberty, while we fight to expose globalism, we have to realize we're talking about a very powerful combination of power.
Renowned author and expert Joel Skousen breaks down the globalist plan to shut down America and stage a new world war.
In one day, America will go from day to night. And if you haven't prepared in advance, there's not enough time to prepare in 24 hours, even if you saw it that early.
Coming to the InfoWar in November is our new documentary film presentation.
Strategic relocation is a systematic way to think strategically in the future about how do I safeguard.
Joel Skousen, Strategic Relocation.
The freeways are going to be crowded, they're going to run out of gasoline, they're going to run out of food, and then they're going to start to go north and south of those freeways.
Joel Skousen is renowned as one of the world's foremost experts in strategic relocation and the securing of your home.
We talk about natural disasters, the health environment, we talk about pollution, the water quality. My personal experience about being in every one of these states.
Government is digging in for the organized, incremental collapse of society and world war.
The U.S. isn't building huge underground bases and bunkers because of some terrorist threat. They know that a massive nuclear attack is coming. They want that attack to come. Most people won't even be ready and won't be able to get out of town when any of these nuclear weapons fall, because there'll be absolute panic.
There is no preparedness without strategy.
What I tell people is that you do have time. Prepare wisely in advance.
This Christmas, give the gift of preparedness. Strategic Relocation, the film, with Joel Skousen and Alex Jones. Joel, before we start the next hour and get into your plane crash and some other issues, it just seems like everything is accelerating. More murders, more hits, more corruption, government going wild. Even if it wakes people up, they want our guns. What is the impetus towards everything, I would say, accelerating 100% or more? Why is that happening in your research?
It's hard to say, Alex. Despite the acceleration, there are certain fixed things that they cannot accelerate, and one of those is inducing Russia and China to attack the West, and they cannot get to a new world order without that attack. And so they clearly are prepping American people and prepping militaristic, whether it's mercenary types or Department of Homeland Security, to take down dissidents someday. Even though that is accelerating tremendously, it takes a long time and a lot of people that they've got to gain to do that.
Sure. And so what do they do if this flips around against them and we figure out there's an arms buildup? Couldn't that actually set them back any more? Because I don't just put a pretty face on this or perfume on a pig. I see this blowing up in their face. I see this actually waking people up.
It is waking people up. Whether or not it wakes up anybody in Congress willing to take them to task or cut funding, that remains a very big question. You know, the difficulty in even cutting funding to Obamacare, our Republicans sabotaged that and funded it. I don't think there's enough strength to actually cut funding to DHS. They'd bring out the idea that, oh, we're helping the terrorists if we cut funding to DHS. We're a long way from winning this battle, even with the amount of backlash that we're engendering right now. We have to keep it up. We have to put the heat on Congress. But it should be half of Congress demanding an answer from DHS, not just 15 congressmen.
But it is a victory that we've gone from them stonewalling to now it being forced out into a national debate.
Absolutely. It's still not a national debate yet, but it's they're putting heat on them, and so far they're stonewalling still.
Well, you're right. I mean, it's somewhat of a national debate, but it really needs to become one on a full scale, because then it will bring us back to the common sense of why we have a Second Amendment. Well,
whenever the media, with this much notoriety about this, with Breitbart and your website and everybody else talking about it, my website, they're not saying a thing about the 3 billion bullets or the 1.6, and that means there's a cover-up. They basically want this buried.
No, but you're right. It's well over 2 billion now. And if you count all the other stockpiles, it's probably well over 3 billion that they've gotten delivered or that have been ordered. I want to come back briefly and talk more about the economy with you. And then at the 8 after, when we come back in that next segment, we're going with Joel Skousen to get into his plane crash that he survived by the grace of God. Pretty amazing. If you haven't seen the news footage, just Google Joel Skousen and click news. You can see it if you're a radio listener. Joel, I briefly wanted to ask you, we sell a video after the tribulation that's got a bunch of different pastors on there breaking down what the Bible clearly says the rapture happens after the Antichrist is defeated. I was just curious what your take on this is, and just guessing, because I don't know your view on it. What do you make of how this is used, regardless, as a cop-out for Christians to never fight evil, because the end of the world is always around the corner? I think more and more, the fact that Christians across this country think that God's going to handle it all, that's the main reason they won't ever stand up against the total takeover, because they think the end of the world's next week.
Well, I agree. This is a problem. It's something that, I struggle with a lot of my Christian friends who have that, kind of a benign, benevolent apathy that God's in charge and therefore we don't have to worry. Well, you may not have to worry about your salvation if you're born again, if you're committed to Christ, but you will fear in the last days, because I'm a belief that there's never been any time in history that God has not put his own people through the fire of adversity in order to strengthen them, to make them stronger. This earth is a test life. It's to test ourselves, to see how we will respond to the promptings of the Spirit of the Lord as it guides us through difficult times. And I personally think that we're going to go through the tribulation. I don't believe in the Cadillac rapture that saves us while we're still in good times in the freeway. I think prior to the second coming, which I do believe in, I believe prior to the second coming, people on the earth will be crying day and night for deliverance, that there will be war upon this planet, and only the intervention of God sending his Son again the second time will stop Satan's wholesale control of the world.
So how does it work? They stage a nuclear war, and then the Anglo-American establishment tries to take over the planet with the Antichrist?
Yes, I believe that they're going to come out of their bunkers after this war starts with a nuclear strike on military targets, and they're going to say, the Russians and Chinese deceived us. We didn't know this was coming. That's a lie, of course. But sometimes, and they'll say the only way to save ourselves now is to join in a militarized New World Order with a League of Democracies, or some of the new euphemistic sounding name for United Nations. NATO will probably become the shock troops of the United Nations. We'll bring out our secret weapon systems that we've been developing, not use them to protect the United States, but use them to militarize this world army. And during this war, I think you'll see the government turn on its own people and say, there are people among us that are not supporting this war, not supporting our troops, that complain that we, the government, knew this was happening, that we're part of the problem. Those people need to be rounded up, and we call upon all Americans.
No, exactly. The New World Order will use it to go after their own domestic groups that aren't evil, and they'll use it to take over the planet. That's exactly what they do.
That's right. And at some point, it ends up with a battle of Armageddon. There's going to be a major conflict in the Middle East that will, and I don't think the current conflict, even the attack on Iran, will lead directly to World War III. I think North Korea is being preserved as the trigger event for that war. And that China and Russia aren't ready yet. And so I think, but one thing that the further intervention in the Middle East will do, as it's being done here in Syria and then Iran, it will solidify our reputation as the bully of the world, handing to Russia and China the excuse to attack the West someday.
You know what really, why I know God's real and all this is real, not just personal experiences and discernment. When I study the globalists, they are all, at the final equation, Luciferians. Well, how is there not a Lucifer if the establishment wants us to be atheists, so we don't even know this game's going on, and then the top people, they know Lucifer's in charge. They believe Lucifer's given them power. All these globalists, when you really look into what they believe, they think they've been given power by Lucifer. It's amazing. Now, here are a few of the headlines that we have up on Infowars.com right now. McCain gets behind Senate attack on Second Amendment. Folks, they're coming after our guns, banning semi-autos, banning high-capacity mags, banning private sale. I mean, they're coming. So just realize we're in deep trouble. Call Congress. DHS to buy 360,000 more rounds of hollow point ammunition as their cover-up implodes. That's at Infowars.com. It's also top story on DrudgeReport.com. Neocon war addiction threatens our future. Ron Paul has a new article out. We have at Infowars.com. Europe, again, anyone with over 100,000 euros in the bank is to have 40% to all of their money to be taken, to be transferred to the mega rich. Cyprus bank bailout. Again, this is all happening, and our news won't even say that they're taking money. They just call it a bailout. So, Cyprus is happy. They've gotten their bailout. Now, Joel, I want to take a few phone calls here for you today. But first off, you were on with us about a week and a half ago and didn't even tell us that a day or two before you had what the local news and the FAA and the police called miraculous. And, you just talked about the Russian oligarchs saying that was a killing, and I agree with you. And I know you're not a paranoid type guy. And, I mean, perhaps this can happen with the type of aircraft you were flying. But tell us about the aircraft, where it happened, what happened, and I saw a lot of aviation sites saying that this is 1 in 100 that you survived, plus you barely even got a scratch.
That's right, Alex. You know, when you train both in the military and for civilian flying, your worst nightmare is an engine quitting and having to put it down in a field somewhere. I'd trained for years on this. It finally happened to me. I was about 12 miles away from my home airport, and the engine started to falter. I turned on the low boost pump to try to get fuel to the engine, having had some fuel clogging in one other instance with this airplane. Normally, the low boost pump fixed it. It did not in this case. I turned on the emergency high boost pump, and the engine came back to life and ran fine. I got into the traffic pattern of the airport. I pulled power back in order to slow down. It's a 200-mile-an-hour retractable airplane, pretty fast, small experimental fiberglass sleek airplane, so it's not easy to slow down unless you pull power. Put down the landing gear and the flaps and went to put power back on the airplane to maintain altitude, and nothing happened. The airplane engine just windmilled, and after about 20 seconds analyzing and heading to the airport, trying to get my machine back online, checking pumps and fuel position indicators, it became obvious I wasn't going to make the field. Lots of cars and people in front of me, and so I turned left into the farming area and prepared to make an emergency landing. I had read an article not 2 weeks before in one of my flying magazines about a highly decorated Navy pilot who had killed himself because he had not maintained airspeed and had stalled and spun into the ground. And so that was fresh in my mind. I made sure, don't get slow, don't get slow. And I kept my speed up. As I was getting ready to touch down, I began to tumble when I hit first, and I knew this was going to be very bad. Within a second and a half, it was all over. I was sitting in the middle of the wreckage on the wing that had broken off from the airplane. The airplane was cracked in half, shards of plexiglass all around. I stepped out on the ground, and I was whole. I had nothing wrong with me. I was just amazing, if not more so, because in the first impact, my seatbelt broke. That's a 2,000-pound seatbelt, and it broke, and I didn't hit anything in that cockpit. It was a miracle.
That is miraculous. That really is miraculous. How many times did the plane flip?
Well, it cartwheeled approximately a time and a half. The wings, as I say, broke apart from the fuselage. The fuselage broke in half. In fact, if it hadn't broken in half, I would have had trouble unjamming and opening the canopy to get out of the aircraft. But because it broke in half, I was able to just step out on the ground. But as I say, when you break the seatbelt, it means you are being ejected from the airplane. And the seatbelt did break, but not only was I not ejected, my glasses were 200 feet away, but I stayed in the cockpit and didn't hit anything. And that's just, I don't have any explanation other than some kind of angelic airbags.
I was about to say, did you see your guardian angel there?
Well, my life didn't flash before me. I guess I'm needed to stick around for a while.
What type of, I mean, it's a neat-looking little aircraft. What type of aircraft was it?
It's a glass aircraft. It's a 200-mile-an-hour experimental aircraft, retractable gear, very fast.
And that's what you fly around advising on secure homes around the country?
That's right. I'm traveling all of the time because I'm busy not only in my World Affairs Brief as editor, but consulting with people and designing high-security residences, retreats for people. And, you know, the airplane keeps me from having to deal with TSA all of the time. It's a great asset. But
I'll tell you what's amazing is that you came on my show, a day and a half, and then didn't even tell us. It was like it was no big deal.
Well, it was a bigger deal to my wife, certainly, who who was in shock for 2 days. But, you know, I was okay. I thanked the Lord profusely, but I moved on. And, of course, I've been dealing with the FAA and accident investigation and all of those types of things since. But I certainly didn't feel like I needed to advertise that I'd been in an accident. I did get quite a bit of notoriety nationwide. Survivalist survives airplane crash.
Man, I tell you, by the grace of God, expanding on that, because I know that the, quote, authorities were amazed at first. What are they saying now about, I mean, I believe, just because I saw you on TV with a small scratch on your nose, was that already there?
No, I did have a couple of small scratches, and I had a bruise where the seat belt was, where I broke the seat belt. It obviously bruised me. I didn't feel any of that the first day.
Well, you must have hit really hard to break a 2,000-pound seat belt.
Oh, absolutely. And as I say, not to have any broken bones and not even to hit the jagged portions of the fuselage that were just inches away from my head, just had to be some divine intervention.
Wow. Well, you're here to expose the New World Order today. The film is Strategic Relocation that I produced last year with Joel Skousen. It is invaluable for everyone, and your purchase supports the broadcast and his work as well. It's available at InfoWarsStore.com. You can also call toll-free 888-253-3139. And I want to come back and take some calls for Joel Skousen. In fact, I said, can you go to 20 after? Can you keep going with us a little bit longer, Joel?
I can, Alex. Okay,
fantastic. Joel Skousen, again, The Secure Home. That's also available at InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. And it's just good to get prepared. It's good to think about emergencies. So when they happen, your mind is already set in the mode of survival. In closing, as we go to break, I would imagine you probably saw some pretty bad crashes in Vietnam out there on those aircraft carriers.
Yeah, in fact, I had a near miss myself where I lost power on approach to an aircraft carrier and actually went down below the deck of the level before the engine caught and finally came back up. It was very dramatic to see on the video camera afterwards. Everyone thought I was lost.
In fact, yeah, we had dinner once. You told me that story. In fact, I think they said that was miraculous from all the things they'd seen as well.
It's amazing how you think as where am I going to put this aircraft? You're worried about hitting someone or killing someone, and fortunately, it didn't happen that day.
That's like that movie, The Great Santini. You seen that?
Yes, I have.
Pretty good movie, huh? You like that movie?
Yeah.
Robert Duvall. Who doesn't like him? All right, Joel Skousen, what a character. He's on our show a day and a half after. I'm like griping about audio. You got to get a better Skype thing, which he has done. And then meanwhile, he's literally been probably saved by angels. Undoubtedly, folks, protected by Providence. Your call's coming up.
Jakari Jackson here, and I want to talk to you for a second about water. You know about ProPure, our flagship water purification system, but check out some of our portable water filter products at InfoWarsStore.com. The clearly filtered water pitcher. Also, for those of you on the go, we have the Athlete Edition filtered water bottle and the RAD Eliminator Pro filtered sports bottle that removes radiation. And keep in mind, we have replacement filters for all of these products. The ever-popular grab-and-go bag favorite, the Life Straw, the Crystal Quest shower filter system, and the Aquapod kit, great for mass storage of water. And while you're at the InfoWars shop, pick up a copy of our latest book, 31 Days to Survival. You can find all this and more at the InfoWarsStore.com, and don't forget it's your support that funds our operation. Sign up for our free newsletter at InfoWars.com/newsletter.
But going back to Joel Skousen here, I've got a few questions, but I'm going to ask him those after we take some calls. I'm going to ask him to talk about drones, robots, what that does for the globalists to not have humans in the decision-making equation, take soldiers out of the way who can refuse illegal orders. I'm going to ask him about that. And I'm going to ask him one other question about what are they going to do with us as our credibility rises, as everything we warned about unfolds. I mean, we're going to be like rock stars, but in a bad way. Believe me, this isn't fun being right about this. So just wait. We'll wait on your answers. Joel Skousen of worldaffairsbrief.com. I'm Alex Jones of Infowars.com. If you just joined us, let's go to Carl in Florida. And you're listening on the free Android app. Carl, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Alex Jones. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for calling, buddy. Go ahead.
Well, I have a question for Joe, first of all. Thank you for being alive, my friend. That was a crazy story you just told. Yeah, I have a question with, well, actually, it's both for you and Alex, actually. With all of the class action suits going on, is it better to go with the class action suits or to sue personal, first of all.
You're talking about suing who?
I'm talking about such as like the fluoride in the
I'm
water.
not getting any of this audio.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll send you audio. Caller, I appreciate your call. We'll relay that over to you. He was asking, what about lawsuits against government when they're doing corrupt things? Are class action lawsuits good or individual lawsuits? What's your view on legal maneuvers like suing in New York to block the assault weapons ban or the ammo ban? That's actually having some success. What's your view on that?
Very rarely will the courts respond positively to, and if it's a matter of clear constitutional interpretation, they'll usually even refuse to take the case, or they'll overturn it on appeal. The courts are very controlled. Nothing is more telling, for example, than William Grigg's blog, Freedom in Our Time, where he documents all of the times that people have taken the cops to court for abuse or for violating their fundamental rights, and only about 1% of the time will judges uphold a victim against the police. So I have very little confidence that that will work.
Is that why the police, on average, a lot of them are actually good men and women, I found, but they've made such a hero psychology out of it that you're an enemy if you don't do whatever the police want. And I mean, in some cities, the police are downright criminal organizations.
Well, that's absolutely true, Alex. And I think more and more the good people in the police are being pushed out and retired. That's what this entire mercenary system has been about, hiring mercenaries at 10 times the cost of soldiers. They're vetting, they're seeing who is unprincipled, they're training and hiring people for the dark side of government.
Cadre leaders.
Yes.
It's incredible. And the stories you told me about family, and FBI, CIA, how they try to get them to be corrupt. If they're not corrupt, they stay at a low level. It's like this Army captain. People say, well, 20 years in the Army, why was he only a captain? Combat veteran, all this stuff. And now he's speaking out against Obama. Well, I mean, that's not a sign of being bad that you didn't get promoted. It's a sign that you're good.
And in fact, anyone who gets to be the highest ranks in the military has to be a yes man. The one general and one admiral that were relieved for standing down or for refusing to stand down during the Benghazi raid were in fact exceptions to the rule. Most people would have gone along. They did not go along. So it shows that even though they've been yes men up to a certain point, sometimes they have a line in the sand they will not cross and have to be removed. And they had to be silenced as well.
Well, sure, Fox Fallon wouldn't attack Iran. They removed, 4 heads of CENTCOM the last 7-8 years. And it shows, yeah, they were yes men to a point, but now what they're being asked to do is so flagrantly criminal that they're not doing it. In fact, it's now come out, Fox Fallon would not launch a fake attack on one of his destroyers with Navy SEALs. Cy Hirsch brought that out. Imagine being asked to kill your own people and blame it on somebody.
That's right. And so that's what they deal with, and that proves my point that everybody who does the bidding of the globalist isn't necessarily a conspirator. There's a lot of yes-manship. There's a lot of predictability they depend upon. And then there's subtle threats. There's giving them false reasons. There's a control system, but it's beneficial. People need to be controlled. But at some point, as this gets worse, as you have said today, we're going to be proven right, and they've got to deal with that, the fact that a lot of people will see conspiracy really does exist to take away liberty.
Joel Skousen, again, if you're just joining us, Alex Jones here, back live. Thank you for joining us. Joel, looking at this, the mad dash, the holy grail by the establishment in MIT publications, DARPA publications everywhere, is that the elite are going to have a singularity by 2025. Now, the media always covers this and says that I believe this. I'm not saying this. Not just Ray Kurzweil, but the UN, all of them, at the highest levels, they believe that they're going to merge with machines and live forever and become godlike, totally delusional. Some of their forebearers in the eugenics intermarried and interbred, thinking it would create God men, and it created stillborn children. If you look at the Huxleys and the Wedgwoods and the Darwins and the Galtons and others 150 years ago in England, but they're the progenitors of all this. And now today, they say we're going to have all drones, which will be choosing their own targets. In fact, the British and the U.S. already have autonomous drones. We're going to have robots that work on robots. Foxconn's already rolling out 1 million of those in China. They say humans won't matter, and we're going to have, say a swarm of 1,000 little robots that come in your house and basically poison you. Now, they're moving in that direction. Undoubtedly, they're moving towards a Skynet system where it's not machines going after humanity, but humans, the technocrats, as they fancy themselves, going after us. So as a military guy, a military historian, a researcher who's looked at all this, I've never heard you speak to it. I may have missed articles you've written. What is your take on the globalists and their pipe dreams and their technocracy and where you see all that going, Joel Skousen?
It's hard to say, Alex. They're always thinking ahead. We have to remember, as you have said many times, as Dr. Stan Monteith has said, this is a satanic conspiracy at the core. It's the only thing that explains this generational effect, why this goes on century after century in a seamless manner. No single evil individual capable of keeping a conspiracy going for 3 generations, let alone 10 or 12 or longer. But the key to how this operates is this form of immunity, and I've hypothesized that not only does the conspiracy promise immunity on earth against judgment, and that's why they have to control the courts, but it also promises immunity from God's judgment, and that's what this quest for immortality is all about. It's part of the facade that you can live forever without God, without the resurrection, without the atonement, without Jesus Christ. And I don't think they'll ever get to that. I don't think it's possible. I think it's a violation of the limitations of physics that God places upon the earth. I mean, obviously, he doesn't restrict himself to the speed of light. He can make right-angle turns at hyperspeed, but human beings can't. And I think there's certain limitations about this testing portion of the planet that man, no matter what they're promised by Satan, won't be able to do. But they will try, and I know that eugenics is part of that. They are going to use war and other biological and chemical weapons, vaccines and other things to destroy a lot of people. But we do have the ability of God to guide us and direct us and help us. There will be a remnant preserved. We will be able to fight back. That's part of the test on earth. This is not a hopeless situation, no matter how much power that they have. So while I don't and cannot project if they're going to get as many of these super weapons or lives that I doubt it, frankly. I think that ultimately God's going to thwart that and going to help us to a certain extent to be able to fight.
Well, sure. How does the human intellect control super AI computers to begin with, if they ever even achieve that? I mean, how do they think they're going to be able to even interpret all the data that the machine is engaged in? And if it isn't, quote, an evil computer, it might be totally logical. If they ever created AI machines, they would probably wipe out the globalist.
And they might not be able to control them. That's right. So I think, though, that they will get, and that's the purpose of the drones, that's the purpose of not only for surveillance, but to be able to target people without the influence of conscience that affects everybody, including evil people. They are being convicted of what they're doing as they do it, and they will be held accountable someday, and they want to avoid that accountability. They want to avoid that conflict of conscience that occurs. It happened in Bosnia with the Air Force pilot who refused to fire on this civilian convoy that was down there. It happens even less now with the drones because the guys operating the joysticks at Creech Air Force Base in Nevada don't have the same connection with their targets.
And if you notice, the media talks about how they're such heroes, and they were giving them medals above Purple Hearts, and then Lindsey Graham, the senator, said, "We're not the SS. When we do it, it's good." But then you hear the whole culture of, let's kill those, those Arabs, those whats, those sand N-words. It just really is sick. And yes, absolutely, the targeting of civilians is just a terrible thing, and they're trying to take our humanity away from us.
Which they cannot do, and so they're trying to evade the humanity, the influence of conscience that works on people, and that's
the issue. While his Skype is reconnecting there, we've had more problems with Skype today than we've ever had, but that's okay because the quality's a little bit better. For radio listeners, Skype gives you better audio, but most of the time, but it also gives you video, and that's why we have the TV portion of the transmission at prisonplanet.tv. Joel, as we take a few final calls here, we didn't get much into combat in Vietnam, but I mean, I think you told me about the stress of pilots after long missions coming in at night in bad weather or whatever, having to pry people out of the planes. But, I mean, did you ever have issues with targets or did you ever see people not go after already pre-marked targets if it was clear that civilians were there?
Well, just came back from Vietnam when I joined it, so I actually did not see combat but I did talk to many of them about their situation. And yes, they did have problems with targeting, though it's very difficult from a fast-moving fighter jet to be able to determine whether they're civilians or whether or not they're bad guys, scurrying out of the buildings. But clearly there were a few situations when they rejected targets and actually did not drop on targets that looked like they were mostly women and children.
And that's what's interesting now, because the first time they did target men, women, and children was World War II. Hitler, bad guy, obviously, but did not target London because he didn't want to kill men, women, and children. So the United States and England launched attacks. Actually, England did it first, to bomb civilian targets, to trick Hitler into attacking civilians, to unify them. And then that's how that unrestricted warfare, that's really a war crime, got started. And I've heard Limbaugh say, part of war is killing civilians. We want to create terror. And, of course, he's never been in the military. He's never studied history, I don't think, or he wouldn't make a statement like that. But this idea that, hey, it's okay to kill 200 innocent people as long as we get one bad guy, they claim, and call it collateral damage, well, that shows you they're not really concerned about dead kids at Sandy Hook, or they'd be crying about villages of dead children in Afghanistan. Plus, even if you're mean, you don't want to kill villages of kids. It turns everybody against you 110%. If you're trying to occupy someplace, you do not want to kill children, do you?
Well, that's right. And that's why, historically, even the most evil criminals have never gone into kindergartens and killed people. Only people that are mind-controlled or hypnotized or in some way drugged up, or in combination of all those three, are capable of doing the crimes of Sandy Hook. And that's why I'm absolutely convinced that was a government crime, putting people up to it.
Oh, wow. I really respect your view, and I read your site all the time and have you on, but I've just been so busy, I hadn't looked into your view. All I know is this: Aurora, and remember, they did Fast and Furious, which is a false flag. They're capable of anything, as Larry Pratt has said, head of Gunners of America. But you look at Aurora, there's no doubt he's in a DARPA program, 30-something thousand a year, high-level Air Force psychiatrist attached to him. The DARPA program is in a mind-brain interface with computers. It's a mind control area. He's on 7 drugs. He says, I'm under mind control at the jail. Then they cover that up, and now they're going to drug him with truth serum, which, if you're under mind control, for those that don't know, they use that in mind control to, quote, make him tell the truth at trial. I mean, this is amazing. And then you look at Sandy Hook, it's got all the same signs. Joel, give us your take on that.
Well, I knew something was up when Holmes, as soon as he was taken into custody, the one thing the police let through was his psychiatrist to give him his meds. And that means that they realized he was starting to talk out of school once those meds had worn off. He admitted that he was drugged, and they had to get him drugged back up again, and he looked like a zombie when he appeared at his first hearing. So
and now they got to drug him again, because I've seen some of the drawings of him when he's not drugged. He looks normal. They could grab any of us, drug us. We're amnesic. We don't remember anything, and they just blame us. This is the oldest trick in the book, and, man, that really shows you how nasty the Obama people are. Why are they so confident? Because I agree it's blowing up in their face, but they're moving forward, Joel.
Well, they are, and we're going to see more Sandy Hooks. I don't think this gun control agenda is going to pass. I think they're going to get, at best, they're going to get the enhanced background checks, which means basically there's no more private sales without and they'll start to build a list, but they still won't get a list. They're going to need to do the grandfather thing. That's a very powerful and evil agenda when they ban assault weapons and they say, if you have, I think someday they're going to say, you can have any weapon, but you're going to have to register it. They're going to need that in order to get a confiscatory list that they will use.
Absolutely. Man, I tell you, though, I mean, I don't just get up here and say I believe something's staged if it isn't. They keep doing it in Colorado. This was close to Littleton. The whole thing with Harris and Kleinbold, totally staged if you look at the real news of that. 127 bombs in the building, half the school empty. They did training videos, part of the school, of a mass shooting. DARPA connections to that. I mean, you look at all these things, it is amazing. They had a mass shooting outside Fort Worth, I don't know, like 14 years ago, and it was in the local news that neighbors saw the Navy veteran being drug out to his van, out to a white van and driven away a week before he went and shot everybody. I mean, it's just like with the Aurora, Colorado shooting, I mean, it is the most cut and dry mind control where they're just doing it out in the open. I mean, in a DARPA program. Theodore Kaczynski was in the CIA MKUltra program. That's LA Times. That's Associated Press. I showed you that last Friday. I showed people the articles. I mean, this is so insane. All right. We're going to go ahead now and take some phone calls here. Joe in Pennsylvania, you're on the air. Joe in Pennsylvania, you're on the air. Go ahead and ask your question while we're getting Joel back.
Okay. Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you guys for everything you're doing. I'm a long-time listener, and I support all you guys. But I have a question. There's a lot of talk going on. I've been listening for years about all these things that are happening, and it's happening faster and faster, and we're losing more and more. My question is to the leaders that are in this movement, such as yourself and Joel and all the others that are out there, when it comes time, have you ever thought about what's going to happen when the proverbial crap hits the fan? Have you ever considered taking, like, your own resources together to save as many poor people as you can from the things that are going to happen? Because,
well, what I found is if you try to just, quote, share everything you've got up front, then it just gets dissipated. Poor people don't know how to take care of themselves, then you're poor. You have to build systems to try to empower as many people as you can. And then, see, I just don't see all this as a foregone conclusion. And I am trying to get my family and people I know around me ready. I'm trying to get everybody out there ready with some basics before things degrade so that those of us that are awake and aware have a better chance. Joel?
You know, I think so many people have tried to fashion, let's just assume the worst case scenario. We do suffer nuclear war. They do put us into a new world order in reaction to that. There's no way you can prepare and gather people in advance. People have jobs, people have varying financial circumstances, and even if you were able to get together, knit together a very big group, you'd get infiltrated, there'd be infighting. What I think is going to happen is that if we, like you're doing now and what I'm doing, Alex, trying to get people to prepare for both scenarios. If we win, that's fine, but at the same time, we have to prepare for a takedown. We have to prepare for a loss in advance, prepare an orderly retreat. If people have prepared so that they can survive this nuclear war, I think we're going to have to rely upon the individual inspiration of God as people are driven out. You know, right now we're all spread out around the world. I think God is going to drive people out of the big cities when no longer have jobs to keep them there. And
God's going to make us get self-sufficient.
They're going to feel the inspiration to go to places where it's safer, and they're going to congregate to places which have a reputation for being safer. And then we'll have a majority of people in those areas that will be able to contend with the New World Order and reestablish liberty.
Exactly. Here's an example to the caller. If I randomly went and got 10 poor people, brought them to my house, and said, I'm going to divide everything I've got up amongst you, they would start fighting with each other. And I'm telling you, the way this works, someone would probably end up killing me. I mean, it's just that's the thing about redistribution. You've got to teach people how to catch fish, not feed them fish. And I mean, that's really the message I'm giving people. That's why the globalists want you dependent and want you to not know how to do anything. That's why they teach kids 2 + 2 doesn't necessarily equal 4. And see, that's not a joke now. They're teaching kids how to be basket cases as part of the takeover. Joel?
And as I say, you know, that's why I don't even recommend that people try to join survival groups like the Citadel forming a walled city. It just makes you a target. I think it is sufficient for people to prepare as best they can. And if they can't afford a retreat, they prepare where they are. They get to a fairly safe place in the outskirts of cities. They prepare to leave when times get bad. And then I think we can knit together a society. And I believe in informal networks of people, of support networks. Not that you have to meet every week or make yourself a target, but informal lists of people in your own mind that you know you can trust.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. People always say, trust me, trust me, trust me. You can only trust somebody you really know. I always say, don't trust me, know me, and then you will have trust. Go ahead, Joel.
Well,
I mean, do you agree with that statement I just made? Yeah, his Skype went down again. It's been really rocky here, but we've had him longer. It's been a great interview so far. Joe, does that answer your question?
Yeah, in a way it does. I just feel really bad because there's so many people that are poor and that want to do things and they're not going to know where to go and they're going to be looking for leadership. And I just would hate to think that their options are to just walk themselves into those camps when...
Oh, no, they're going to join the FEMA brigade and then be given a machine gun to take out the terrorist. I mean, it's going to be fun. Well, I wouldn't even feel bad for the average poor people. They're going to be used as the new soldier force, that, you know, those that can't take care of themselves against whoever was self-sufficient, and then bring us back to the camps and make us work for them. That's actually, it's going to be poor people in black uniforms aiming machine guns at us. We're going to be in the fields working for them.
Hi, this is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, with some news about some new additions to the InfoWars store. You know, good health is freedom. When you're healthy, you're not a slave to the medical system. Everything works well, your brain, your body, even your spirit. You're a healthier person. And to help support that great health, Alex has asked me to source the cleanest, most potent superfoods and other similar products in the world and bring them to the InfoWars store. So we've done that. The brand name is Health Ranger Select, and we're starting out right now with these three products. We've got Himalayan salt from Pakistan, formed hundreds of thousands of years ago in an ancient seabed long before modern pollution destroyed much of the oceans. This is loaded with trace minerals, and it's pristine, true, full-spectrum sea salt. We've also got Natural Attitude Turmeric. It's an extract of turmeric, very potent, tastes great, alcohol-free. This is from organic turmeric out of India. And we've also got Clean Chlorella. And we sourced and did research on all the chlorella sources around the world, and we found the two cleanest sources that have the lowest levels of any kind of contaminants. In fact, this one is virtually free of all metals and all contaminants. It's called Clean Chlorella, and it's about 2/3 protein, and it's got chlorophyll and chlorella growth factor in it. Check it out online. It's an amazing superfood that athletes are using and people are using to help support healthy lifestyles. It's fantastic. This is all packaged in our certified organic facility here in Central Texas. There we follow USDA certified standards, and we're audited every year by the USDA certifier to make sure that we comply with all organic standards. That, combined with the fact that we only source super clean superfoods and raw materials from around the world, means that our products represent the cleanest and most potent products that you'll find across the natural products industry. Check all of these out under the Health Ranger Select brand name at the InfoWars store, InfoWarsStore.com. And we'll be bringing you more of these in the near future. Thanks and take care.
Final segment with Joel Skousen of WorldAffairsBrief.com. Doris in Tennessee, thanks for holding. Real quick question for Joel. Go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
I really agree with everything that you say. And what my main concern is right now is the corruption of this government. And now we're being indoctrinated with, you know, I love Rosa Corey, but I don't want to see these commercials on TV for same-sex marriage. Fox News is running them constantly.
Well, no, sure. I mean, let's expand on this. It's not that we dislike people for whatever they're doing. I mean, we're all, you know, do things that, you know, in God's system, God sees as bad. It's the issue is they're forcing it on kids. They are trying to end the family, and they're trying to sexualize children everywhere, and it is very evil. So I guess that's a question for Joel Skousen. I mean, that is part of the plan, is to destroy the family. Joel Skousen.
It is, and they're using the doctrine of rights to say, you know, this is just not right, that we cannot exercise the right to be married. But it is a misunderstanding of the doctrine of rights. They have the perfect right to go ahead in private and have whatever relationships they want. They don't have the right to force other people to accept that, however. And that's what we lost in the civil rights movement. We lost the right of private discrimination. And it's a fundamental right. If you don't have the right to disassociate then you've really lost a major fundamental right that can force that upon you.
Well, I mean, here's the deal. All of these groups that are saying they're being persecuted have diverse people in them, but the ones the globalists are controlling are wanting to force us to accept everything they're pushing, including euthanasia. I mean, it's the whole agenda is just anti-life. I mean, the globalists, I have the university documents. I cover it in Endgame 2.0, the extra that's on prisonplanet.tv, where we read the stuff where they said, we're going to promote homosexuality so that we can reduce population in the family. I mean, you know, and then I've had people in Whole Foods demonize my 3 kids and tell me I shouldn't have 3 kids. They're discriminating against me. I'm sorry, Joel, go ahead.
Well, there is a war against the family, and it's on a lot of sides, whether it's birth control, whether it's abortion, whether it's the discouragement of families. But I believe, you know, and we're losing the battle of eugenics, basically, because other more socialist economies are outproducing us. The American white Christian family is not producing as many children as they should. And we should be having more children. We should be keeping them out of the public schools. We've got to start more homeschooling or using private schools to raise up a generation that can withstand what's coming.
Well, look at the new Southern Poverty Law Center report that actually says being white is inherently bad. I mean, man, they really, it's almost meant to make whites become racial. I mean, it's like openly saying white men are bad, period.
Well, we're certainly leading the point we're going to be a minority someday, and you watch, we won't have the same minority rights they're pushing for Latinos and other minority groups right now.
Well, sure, the globalists just use it as a divide and conquer strategy. Joel Skousen, worldaffairsbrief.com. I want to get you back soon on the whole Russian thing and so many fronts. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Alex.
Get his film, Strategic Relocation, Infowars.com. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.